On this episode of the Black Boss Ladies platform.
Don't be afraid to try something new. Sometimes a pivot is necessary. When I first got my PMP, my base minimum that I was asking for was $80 an hour. Many times in technology, I am the only black face in the room. So it's not even about being the only woman. It's being in a room of 20 plus men, SVPs, VPs, and being able to make sure your seat at the table isn't forgotten.
Welcome to the Black Boss Ladies platform, a place where women can gain inspiration for their journey to success through the powerful experiences of successful black businesswomen, past and present. These women are redefining leveling up by creating legacies in their own time. Are you ready to do the same? Join a discussion on the BBL platform, the place where legacies live.
Welcome to the BBL platform. I'm Julia Myers, and this is my co-host, Tiffany Lee.
Hi everyone, welcome to the show. And today we are interviewing Angel Ware. Angel is a senior program manager for strategic initiatives.
Yes.
Look, I had to get that right? It's so interesting. I met Angel. We were in a room full of people. It was a couple of rooms, maybe 500 people. There was a handful of black people there.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
And
I was in the South Shade.
Yes.
Right.
Yes, we know those places.
Yes. And she and I just connected right there. We were talking about black women, black issues, and it was just an organic conversation, right? And it was so enjoyable. And the interesting thing about it is I had just talked to Julie and said we need a tech person. And walk in the room and Angel was delivered to us. Yes.
It was a lot of pressure living up to that name. You just reminded me of that.
I can imagine, like, I'm not Angel like that.
Right. Exactly. So Angel, tell us a little bit about where you started your journey.
So, ultimately, you mentioned I'm a tech person, but I am a people leader that fell into technology, right?
Okay.
So that has always been a passion of mine. So, early on, I would say it's always been innately in me to have that kind of, curiosity around people, right? So that foundationally was kind of where I started. I wanted to find things that involve me with people, but I'm an introvert, so it wasn't like I wanted all that interaction. But I sought out things that would get me that those organic, fluid type of relationships where you can learn from people and just build that network early on. Just because relationship building is truly how you can kind of move a little bit quicker.
Yeah, you can't really do anything without people.
Exactly.
Like, technology is. We got a lot of stuff happening in the tech field and people are becoming afraid of jobs and stuff like that. But at the basis, you still going to need people for something.
To work that technology.
Exactly.
And you drive results through people and technology.
Exactly.
Too. So that's, where, kind of, I would say I started without really knowing pointedly what that looked like from a career standpoint. So I bounced around a lot initially before I found my footing, with ADP, something that was very technology based. Came from retail, not a traditional pivot, but I had the core foundations of customer service. I knew people. People, you can learn those specific skills that are, relative to the role. So that's, kind of what drove me to, technology.
So your life in retail, what did that look like?
Oh my goodness, it was fun. I was a manager at Target.
Okay.
So, you have those, organic one-off interactions, but you're not married to that person, right? Because they're just coming there transactionally. But what that gave me, Target has a great leadership program. It gave me my leadership fundamentals.
They recruit people out of college, and it's hard. I remember trying to get into the Target program. It's for people that just get out of college.
And they are very intentional about equipping you as a holistic manager, right? It's not just about you driving the numbers or you trying to bump sales up. It's about harnessing what that likability factor is. You know, at the end of the day, do people want to work with you, for you?
Exactly, because you can't, like, you got to get the job done through people.
Yes.
So you can't forget about that.
Yes, but what Target didn't do was allow me to have my nights and weekends. You know, holidays, I found myself resenting shoppers in there who are excited about the holidays and
you don't get to participate.
That's it has to be a better way. I need different type of structure.
Okay, so you leave retail because you mad. Y'all out there shopping on my, on the holidays and stuff.
Exactly.
Right. But every chapter has something. So you took from that what Target had to give you, and where do you go next?
So, oddly enough, I was recruited out of Target. Someone had witnessed me handling the client that was very unruly and saw me de-escalate that in person. Real time is different than on the phone. And she said, okay, if you can do that real time, how would that translate in the payroll area? No experience on the technology, but I went in ground floor implementing payroll. So they taught me the technical skills and acumen that I needed to be successful in servicing that group of clients, which was small business. And working with small business clients and large clients, two totally different things.
Yes.
It's a more intimate type of connection that you have with a small business owner. They have a lot at stake. It's their money.
There's their whole life.
Their money, right? But the perfect learning ground to really get those service fundamentals and, learning in a safe technology space, because we were basically implementing kits of applications.
Okay.
So, showing them how to run payroll through us, basically.
So you're kind of like the middle, like you have the software.
Exactly.
And they're this mom and pop or entrepreneur, they're trying to pay their staff.
Exactly.
And they're going to use your technology to pay their staff.
To pay their staff, to support their staffs, with the HR services and beyond, to offer benefits. All of that is what I would kind of walk them through or usher them through in that process. So getting them set up on the front end, and then I turn them over to a service team that services them for the life of the time that they're with.
So somebody auntie was in Target acting crazy.
Yes, exactly. Okay.
And you did what you knew how to do.
Yes, I didn't react, I responded.
Right? So somebody else like, oh, I like this. I see those skills, and they take you into a whole new world.
Absolutely.
What are your initial thoughts when you're going into that new world?
Going into a new world, I am intentional about remaining curious. Like, be curious about everything, because you should learn as much as you can to equip yourself to move as efficiently through that new space, as possible. So when navigating to a new space, it's a kind of a three-pronged approach, right? I want to know the people I need to know.
Okay.
I want to know the processes in which I need to know to get things done, according to their set expectations. And then when I say people, processes, and the systems, people, processes, and the systems. So, understanding what vehicles do they use to communicate, how do they, work with their clients, their products that they're, selling or building or anything like that. So it's again, I think, rooted in curiosity.
Let me say this, because I think that one thing that needs to be said here is when you said that how you handle that customer is what got you to your next phase of your career. That's something we've talked about several times on here. That people are always watching, and it can be a good thing or a bad thing for your career. So you were in a place to make that a positive and move your career forward. So
absolutely, I'm very intentional about that, because especially with how you treat people on your way up, because the person that is working for you at some point may be someone that you're working for in the future, or they have that entryway to your next opportunity.
So true.
So true. Building relationships.
Yes.
Your next blessing is always going to come through a person. People like, I'm ready to go here, I'm ready to go there. You have to realize that it ain't just going to show up at the door, and if it do, it's going to show up through a person.
Absolutely.
So that's something that always have to be in for how am I treating people?
Yes, that was my key, I would say, part of my key to success with ADP is really learning people. One thing, I learned my boss and my boss's boss. What makes them tick? What do they want? Like, what are the things that are most important to them? How does that align to the organization? Because sometimes you may have a leader that isn't aligned. It can lead you astray, right?
Yep.
And it allows you or equips you with what you need to be able to successfully manage up You're not always going to get a leader that is equipped to manage you and what you need, right? But are you able to communicate in a way that lets them know what you need? You know, are you able to manage them in what they give to you? You know,
and those underlying things that's usually happening in an organization is more than just actually doing a job. But like you said, sometimes you do have to manage up, and you got to do it sometimes in a way that it doesn't affect their ego.
Exactly.
That's always,
you know,
that it doesn't affect their ego.
That's where that EQ comes in at, that emotional intelligence, knowing how to read your audience and, you know, finesse it a bit. I'm naturally inclined to be a bit sharp with my delivery. You know, I'm Scorpio, you know, for those that believe in it. But, you know, I view it as, you know, just being honest and forthright out of respect, but to some, it can be very offensive. And what I've learned in my corporate career, the truth doesn't have to hurt. You know, when people say the truth hurts. No, it doesn't have to. It doesn't have to. You can still be direct and to the point and considerate of how that person is going to receive it, right? But lastly, I would say definitely what ADP did for me, or that time within that walk, was it made me super intentional about being my top advocate. I wanted to be intentional about how I was able to articulate the things that I did specific to moving or driving results, because sometimes that's the differentiator between you and that next candidate. Like, yeah, you got good results, but how did you do that? So I was my biggest advocate, because if not you, then who, right? You know, we like to assume our bosses speak on our best behalf when we're not in the room. We like to assume
they ain't even thinking about you.
Right, our peers, you know. But, you know, you should be the one that's socializing what you do and how you bring value and connecting the dots for folks. Don't assume, oh, I didn't know that you were behind that initiative. Oh, yeah, let me tell you exactly what I did.
Exactly.
You know, we, as women, tend to shy away from bragging on ourselves.
That is true.
We do.
That is true. Yeah, in communications, we talk about that, how women typically put in words that are that equivocate what they're doing. It is never it's never straightforward. This is what I do. Oftentimes when we're talking, we'll say something like, I think, even though we already know. Right? I think we should do this instead of we should do this.
I found that I saw an article just out of the blue. I can't even remember who wrote the article, but it was telling women to stop apologizing. And I stopped, like, oh, I'm sorry for this. I thought this, like, I was like, man, I do that a lot. I'm about to stop that.
Thank you for your patience.
Thank you for your patience, right? Or I'm sorry, like, changing those little words those small words do change the way in which you communicate and how people see you when you communicate. So.
Yes, especially if you hadn't been exposed to having to have that type of authoritative stance in anything. I personally started working at 14. By 16, I was a supervisor at White Castle.
Right.
Is that right?
In high school.
Wow.
But I had that drive, and I knew I wanted things, right? And I didn't want to put that added pressure on my mom. Our household, we were struggling, we were fine, but we were, you know, it was tight. So
just enough.
Yeah, just enough. So I wanted to contribute early. You know, in that
That's great.
I think you also, when you take that authoritative stance, you have to be okay with offending people.
Yes.
Even if you don't try to, because sometimes, like, well, who do you think you are? You know, you haven't found your voice yet. That's all. You know, it's because it's not to run over you. It's just that I'm going to stand here with authority, and not authority over you, but over my life and the situation.
Absolutely.
And sometimes that can rub people the wrong way.
Absolutely. When you don't ask for permission and you're moving in a way that just says, let me ask for forgiveness after the fact. You know, was the result good? You know, did we see the bottom line?
Did we get there?
I'm sorry that I didn't run it by you initially. You get what I'm saying? Like, you know, what do we really
It could be hard to be in those spaces, though.
Absolutely.
It really can.
In many times in technology, I am the only black face in the room. So it's not even about being the only woman. It's being in a room of, you know, 20 plus men, SVPs, you know, VPs, most from different countries and things like that, because of the space that I'm in. And being able to make sure your seat at the table isn't forgotten. Being able to make sure that those stigmas don't come out when you're trying to run the room, right? You know, no, this isn't a head snapping moment. This is a, hey, I'm speaking, you know.
Yeah.
We can table that, you know. This is my room that I'm owning right now because I'm facilitating this workshop.
Yes.
So making sure that they realize that there's no difference with that stance, male or female. You know, don't put the snap in, and if I didn't put the snap in,
Right, don't make it because if y'all was snapping.
Exactly.
Right. I've been in predicaments though. I was just telling a story where I was teaching some people, and it was every level of leadership there. So we got leader titles, because in government everybody going off titles.
Yes.
So I would say we have titles, not people, titles that were beneath my title, and then we have titles that was above my title. And I'm giving a presentation about how to be a better presenter, because sometimes they have these slides that just have so many words on them, and you know, so I'm giving tips on how to engage your audience and stuff like that. And I have a leadership person that literally takes out their laptop and dismisses me. And then when I come over, because now I got them in an activity, and I come over, you know, to let her know that I see you dismissing me, but in the most professional way, she turns and says, you know, I've given presentations at every level, and they say I do really well, so.
How did you handle that?
Right, that's what I'm
You know, and it's just like, you breathe, and you remember where you are, and you remember you can't do the head snap, you know. And at that moment, to me, she showed the room more of who she was as a leader than who I was doing it. So I allow her to stay there and do as she pleased, and I act like she wasn't there anymore. What am I gonna do?
Right.
Yeah.
You know. But those are sometimes you find yourself in those predicaments because of your face, you know, the color of your skin, and your title isn't high enough that people don't think they have to listen to you.
Right.
And you know, disruptors have a purpose in your journey, in your walk, because what that equipped you with was how to not allow somebody to knock you off your square.
Exactly. Because that's everybody's like, oh my God, Julia, this is amazing. I'm going to do my presentation like this now. Like, I'll let them be the verdict of what I'm bringing to the table, and not this one person that has intentionally, to me, tried to devalue what I was bringing.
Right.
Yes.
You know,
And
So that's important. Yeah, that's very important, because you have to basically not react. Because if you take the attitude from this situation into teaching the rest of the class, then you're not going to get that response at the end. And in a lot of ways, then you prove her right, that your presentation wasn't valuable.
Right. And her presentations after that still suck. So.
And no,
I said it.
And somebody was sitting in there that went to your course and thinking
all the things. Oh my God, they do it all the time. I've been in presentations. They'll shoot me a text like, that ain't what you taught us.
You gave us all
and you didn't listen, because I've done presentation shit, and they say that I'm great. Okay.
You know, and when you run into distractors like that, sometimes it's other underlying things that's driving that. I usually like to offer that attention that they're seeking, because that was an attention seeking moment. And I would have flipped it on her. You know what? Can you show us some of your best practices? Like, what are some of the things that you like to do? Because one, it allows her to get that off, right? Like, now you pull her back into engagement.
I ain't got that.
I love that. Look,
that's something. This is why you got to ask. Exactly. Because
I was talking to her. I was like, I never thought of things this way. So that is great.
Especially in my space, you know, it's mostly white male dominated. So they have a way of, you know, having you questioning your value. They have a way of having you feeling flustered when you know you said something very sound, succinct, and direct. And they looking clueless because they know how easy it is to make us feel that way in that space.
Because they've mastered that way of making you feel like that.
Throughout the world.
I had to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. But more importantly, I had to shift my focus. My focus used to be on, you know, how did I look? How did I come across? You know, was I poised and put together? You know, I shifted it to the type of impact I wanted to make. You know, I want to be a catalyst for change for others, you know, to inspire them to be their best selves. That has nothing to do with me. It has everything to do with how they receive the messaging. If I stutter when I get it out, doesn't matter. If they received it, you know, I had a instance at ADP, one of the hardest pieces of my career. I had to lay off in upwards of, it was about 120 people, right? These are different spaces across the U.S. within my regions that I owned, and these were our most tenured. So they've been with ADP longer than I was alive at the time, like 30 years, 25 years, and we had made decided on the strategy. Let me not say we. I was kind of voluntold, right, to do it in person. And I was so nervous about, you know, with my peers, you know, these HR execs, like when I'm making this delivery to this group of people who've been with ADP all this time, knowing you're going to expect emotion and things, I was initially so worried about how I'm going to deliver it. You know, make sure I sound professional, make sure my voice don't shake, make sure I got in that room and I looked at them people in the eyes, saw the emotion, because they knew what time it was. They knew. Right? We just pop up on site. Hey, come meet us in the conference room. Right? I'm like, I'm not about to play with these people. And I went off script, you know, and talked to them like people. Didn't worry about if I got all the bullet points, you know, right. We can get them a copy of this later. You know?
Exactly.
And allow myself to be in the moment, in the emotion, cry with them. Like, I wasn't worried about my professional poise at that time. It didn't matter if I was well put together. It didn't matter, you know, but going into things, sometimes we get caught up on what's socialized as important. And
and that ain't important. Because some of the people that make the best impacts, it has to become you, like audience focused, which is part of that presentation. So stop thinking about you and think about the people that's receiving that message. And like you said, if you stutter, they won't even notice it. They won't even notice it because it's more about them. I'm talking about down to the temperature of the room. Right? Because all that matters when you're thinking about humans.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You cannot take the human element out of things. You know, you manage data points, but you have to manage the person, you know, driving those data points.
And you can't hide behind technology.
Exactly.
And how did you, so you told us that you were in the retail service, and then you ended up in technology, and your degree is in business. So you talked a little, you said, I bounced around.
So after ADP, you know, it was actually toward, you know, it was in 2019, right? You know where I'm going with this. You know, I've always moved through corporate with the entrepreneurial spirit, but I hadn't been a full-time entrepreneur yet. So toward the end of 2019, I'm like, oh, that sounds sexy. Like, let's do this. You know, let me go full out. I made my financial preparations, left corporate, decided to consult, you know, try consulting on my own and things before I got educated on going to a consultant firm. So I was trying to build these contracts on my own, doing the legwork, and then boom, everything shut down. So I'm unemployed.
I want to say something too, though, because right now there's a big drive for entrepreneurship, which I 100% back, right? Because with that comes so much freedom. But you said something, though. You said, before I made the leap, I got some stuff in order. What did you repeat?
So I had to get my financial self in order. I wanted to make sure I was set to pay my bills at least a year, maintaining my same lifestyle. Because there's a difference. I wanted to keep my cable on. I wanted to be able to get my groceries delivered. Like, you know, I wanted to maintain my current state of lifestyle. So that was a different figure than just, you know, just a year minimum. So preparing that way, preparing my mindset, because moving in an entrepreneurial spirit within a corporate environment is very different than being an entrepreneur. Right, because corporate is very annualized. It's in the way that they manage the business, the ebbs and flows, the financial. When you're an entrepreneur, it's not time for that type of pace. It is a more aggressive pace, and it's up to you to motivate, inspire, and push yourself.
You hear me? Can't look for nobody to do it.
No, right? Because meeting other people's deadlines could actually be a lot easier than meeting your own deadlines. Okay, so you have to be ready for that.
You own the deadline, so it's easy to move the needle. Oh, you know what?
I'm just gonna move that to the 15th instead of the 30th.
Absolutely. So the discipline piece was the thing that I had not spent enough time on. So I had all the things surface level lined up, the discipline I did not have. So COVID hit, I lost, life was lifing. Nothing like life or traumatic experiences specifically to kind of thrust you into a different velocity in the way that you're trying to pursue your goals.
Yeah.
I had lost 3 significant family members back to back, 28 days apart, each of them. And, that makes you look at life differently. I was in Atlanta at the time by myself. Quarantine, I had family in Atlanta. They were an hour away commute. Right? No traffic.
Right.
But, so I'm like, I got to get home. And, so toward the end of 2020, I'm making those preparations. Then my stepfather got terminally ill. So I moved home to help my mom out. Turn the year, top of 2021, he passed. So I had to move my mom in with me. So again, life is lifing.
Yeah.
In this time, in this interim, I'm picking up little contracts from different consulting firms, getting my feet wet. So that was where the Hershey's came in. That was where, some of those interim periods came in where I know I was showing up to those roles as a fraction of myself.
Wow.
Trying to deal with
all the things that was going on in life. And now you're an entrepreneur. So you in new water, you have all these traumatic experiences happen. You've moved your life.
Yes.
And you have to show up.
Yeah. And while taking care of my mom, taking her to her appointments. So toward the end of 2021, she got, she was pivoted to hospice, right? So at that time, I'm like, okay, I need to, that's what I was saying about pursuing my PMP became more of a necessity for me to manage my mind, keeping my mind sound through the things I couldn't control. Yep. Right. So that boot camp was like, okay, that's that thing that I know that I can do well, I can focus on, while everything else
kind
is
of a
just,
distraction too, right? Yeah,
absolutely. It was a manageable stressor. But
can you explain, or what is PMP?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, it's Project Management Professional Certification, and that is basically like your bachelor's degree for managing projects, or your master's. It's your piece of paper that says you are an expert in managing projects and systems.
I was telling Angel I got my job to pay for the class because it's expensive. It's not cheap. That's what I'll say. But I believe in investing in yourself. But I got my job to pay for the training course, and then they paid for me to take the test 3 times, and I flunked every single time. The last one I failed by the skin of my teeth because they have these 5 areas and you have to have like satisfaction, and so it's not an easy certificate to get at all.
But it's not an easy test.
It's not an easy test.
They test you to test you instead of so I would strongly suggest not looking at those fails as a true measurement of your understanding of that particular discipline, because the test is to test you, to test how you take tests.
She's giving me encouragement before we got on camera that I probably need to retake it. We'll see.
Listen, my boot camp, again, it is one that I've referred, several folks to. They all have passed on the very first time taking the test, 100% passing rate. She is a sister. She is awesome. She makes it relatable, but she teaches you how to take the test. From that,
sometimes it's just really the big hurdle.
I have a question though. So you pursued this in the middle of a lot of tumult. What made you decide to pursue that in the middle of everything that was going on?
Sometimes when, as women have this control issue, right?
We do.
That was my way of keeping myself centered. It was a piece of my life I could control. Whether I show up to class, how I show up to class, if I'm gonna do the homework. It was those little incremental things were wins for me, because it was like I got to
control something. Yeah.
And I know it sounds crazy, but it gave me what I needed to walk my mom down. You know what I mean? Like it gave me just enough, and it gave me that certainty that I'm gonna be good after this. Set myself up foundationally. But so when that happened, it wasn't like I was in an emotional heavy state trying to scramble and get things in order. Does that make sense? I would not have been able to take that test and pass it after. Post that.
I'm actually in a group on Facebook. It has a lot of, it's project management for African American women and stuff. When you see like some like you were saying, most of us have been doing that anyway, right?
Yes.
Managing projects in our job, but to like bring it out and highlight it and get that certification, we're talking about people going from 30,000 to, in that group, I see some people accept jobs for $175,000, $200,000. That's a life-changing salary.
When you couple when done right, like when you walk that walk in parallel with building your experience, right? So you have that experience coupled with, if you have a degree, whether, undergraduate or graduate, and that skill, that thing saying that you are a subject matter expert in project management. When I first got my PMP, my base minimum that I was asking for was $80 an hour. And that was your base minimum that you're able to start negotiation from.
Wow.
So one of my girlfriends, known her since 6th grade, right? I talked to her into getting the PMP. She was coming from a leadership role, traditional leadership, right? Within a large organization. And she was like, but I don't know if I have project management experience. And I got to asking her what she does on a day-to-day basis. She's managing the fiscal budget. She is managing, all these initiatives she's rolling out with the team. And I said, you are managing projects,
exactly.
Right? And at the time, she was at a salary that she had desired more, right? And wanted a better way to do so. But she's also a single mother, so she's like, I don't have time to like start all the way fresh, right? So exploring the PMP for her, it not only equipped her with more flexibility and options within the marketplace, but it gave her double of what she was making.
Wow.
Just like that piece of paper.
Yeah, I can see that. That's something to think about. All right, so you get the PMP, you're out as an entrepreneur, you're still, carrying a heavy load, but you passed the PMP.
Passed the PMP.
Okay, what doors open up for you with that?
Oh, so many. Oh my goodness. That's what becomes the problem.
Right.
Because you're like, all of these
Now you
options.
have a lot of choice.
Yes, you have all these choices and things, but you then have to make sure that you are clear and you define what is happy for you, because that's subjective.
Yeah.
And what does success look like? Because that is subjective.
Yeah.
For me,
sometimes you could be chasing something and it's like, this is not even what I thought it was going to be.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Like, success changed so much over my life. You know what I'm saying? Like, how I defined it in my 20s is totally different than how I define it now in my upper years, right? So, success for me is peace, flexibility, say in how I do things, and just being able to work from wherever.
I think that's a lot of people thing that's happening here is the ability for flexibility. People want to show up, they want to do their jobs, but they also want to go out and maybe shop at 12 o'clock or 1 o'clock in the afternoon, or take a yoga at 10 and then come back and do a project. They want to have that freedom and flexibility now. We don't want to go to work for 9 to 5.
Exactly.
And then just, because studies have shown those same hours you could probably cut down into 4 and get the job done even better than the 8 that was there.
Yes,
and people have to wake up to that.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I want to do things my way. I want to make an impact wherever I go. I'm looking to see how I can leave my legacy. Whether that's just getting someone to recognize that they're great at something that they never even considered.
Like your friend.
Exactly.
Your friend, right?
And after she completed it, I hired her on. To my program. So she's working with me now, super successful in a role that is allowing her to hone in on those newly, developed project management skills and just flourishing right now. And I don't hire friends often. That's a slippery slope.
Yes, friends, family.
Especially to work directly for you, because you don't know how that,
because now the dynamic. The power struggle is different, right? The roles that you're playing.
Yes.
We all play roles in everybody.
And boss is very different.
Very. And I believe in bringing your authentic self to work. No doubt. Like, I am who I am and working at home. But I had to be real clear. We had a really good conversation to clarify what that looks like at work.
Okay.
Because I don't want to have to dance around that.
Yeah.
Hey, you missed the mark on this, and this is what I need. I'm not going to manage you differently than the others.
Else.
However, I will take you more into consideration because we got that, other. But
I may know that your Cheerios wasn't doing that great this morning or something.
Exactly.
So I, get to that though. You say I hired her. So now you're an entrepreneur that's hiring people. What does that look like? Okay,
that's PMP fulfillment for me, right?
Right.
That is ultimate fulfillment.
So tell me how that structure happens though, because you say you're a consultant. Yes. That works for other.
So I'm a consultant working for a consultant firm. Okay. So traditionally, would it be classified as entrepreneur? No, right? But I own me, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. So I'm in a contract with a consulting firm that serves as my advocate, if you will. Okay. So they then put me on with ABM. Okay. So now I'm consulting for ABM for their strategic initiatives. Okay. So with that, I get to hire who works within my program. Gotcha. So I have project managers, business analysts, and project coordinators and things like that. So I brought her on into the program.
See, that's a structure that people probably don't even understand, because when you were telling me that, I'm like, I don't. Because at first you were out trying to do, get contracts yourself. Mm-hmm. But you decide to partner. Partnership is big, especially right now too. Is. Some people are so afraid to partner because they think they're going to lose their freedom.
Yes.
But sometimes partnering with people that already got the tools and technology is called leverage.
That's it. I want somebody to have my back.
Right. You're leveraging. And they may be in rooms that you're not in or don't even know exist.
Exactly.
So now you get to leverage the things they have in place. And now
the relationship with ABM. I mean, the relationship with the company that I'm with now. They're $1 billion company, like killing it in their industry and respective lanes. Yeah. Trying to map over into other lanes. But I wouldn't have gotten that handshake without the people having my back. If you will. So and plus I didn't want to pay out of pocket for my benefits. So you have to weigh what works for you and how you define success. Truly.
And you're mapping that out. So how long have you been doing what you're doing right now in this space?
So in this space, I would consider in this space for over 15 years. But with ABM since last August. Okay. So my particular area is implementing a new time and attendance system, which is huge for them because of their 100 plus thousand employees they have across the globe. 90% of their workforce are all frontline workers, your hourly employees.
So ABM, I want to make sure, is this the cleaning?
That's a leg of them. Mm-hmm.
Okay, because we at the city hire ABM to clean our buildings.
Yes, they are everywhere, right?
They are. Yeah.
So they are going through a huge transformational effort. So I was brought in to lead their workforce management efforts specifically, and they're in the innovation chain, right? So they're implementing this new time and attendance system. We're also implementing new client dashboards, like how do those contractual workers and the clients, how do they manage their productivity? How do they measure their value add for doing services with ABM? So that's the leg of the business that I'm overseeing. But it's a big transformational effort for a huge company that has been well established, but just green to this level of change.
Yes, and sometimes people are intimidated by big companies. But what I've learned, just even working in government, sometimes it's hard for them to change quickly. Like we can go in and change some, but like some of those systems and stuff be so that change it don't happen so easily, which is why entrepreneurship is on the rise even more, because as a small business you can literally become a global sensation because you can move different than one of these big corporations.
And for those really intrigued by the notion of entrepreneurship, I would challenge you to really ask yourself what's driving you toward that. Yeah. Because when you really break it down and define it, you may be able to find that in a different way. Where you're not just out there by yourself and starting from scratch or trying to do that. Or that may be your lane, Right. But there are still ways to drive freedom, whether financially or just in where you sit. Without necessarily having to be a full-blown, entrepreneur, right? You can be entrepreneur-like.
Like you have the benefits of it. It's like a marriage that happens, right?
Yes.
We love the benefits of corporations and government because the pension has come. Right. I stayed so long because the government paid off $128,000 of student loan debt, which. An entrepreneur, it would take me so long to do, right? But I've also done entrepreneurship on the side, so it's like I get to walk in both worlds. But like I be looking at some entrepreneurs like, you feel like you may have freedom, but you really don't have as much freedom as you think you do, because first of all, you gotta learn systems, right? You gotta learn systems. You need accountability.
Yes.
It's just so much more than. I want people not to get caught up in the height of social media. You can have all that. I have some friends doing corporate, and they be in London, they be everywhere, you know, but they still, because that corporation has allowed them to work in their greatness and still have freedom and flexibility.
Yeah, that sounds like they were fully clear on what makes them happy and how they define success.
Yeah.
True.
So let me ask you this. I know that during the pandemic you had your own business, and now we're talking about you contracting with another company. So besides the pandemic, what do you think as an entrepreneur, what struggles were you having?
Well, I still have one leg in that space, right? I have a nonprofit that I'm creating at the moment. So I would say the struggles that I have in that particular lane is the starting. Right? The starting of certain things, because you can have a big idea, you know, you got all your ideas and conceptually it makes sense. You're like, okay, where do I start? You know, and then you stop starting because you're making yourself
it's overwhelming.
Yeah, it's overwhelming. You don't know which direction to take. And I also was battling perfectionism. Right, I didn't want to release it. I didn't even want to announce it. I debated on even sharing with you all that until that thing is right, until it's fully baked, until it's perfect. And then you look out here on social media and you see folks with these businesses that are booming with typos on their pages, and you're like, why am I tripping off the cosmetics?
Right,
do it, just fail forward. Like, don't be afraid to take those risks.
Instead of leaning back. You lean in, you'll learn the lessons along the way. And I think people like to see the story, right?
Yes.
So we think everybody's caught up in the end, but the most successful people have said they've shared every stage of it, and you get the buy-in from the audience, because now they want to know. They want to know what's going to happen, but also they want to help you.
Exactly.
They start getting the investment in it, and then they start sending people. I remember I did my goal right before I got pregnant with Maverick. I did my goal that I was going to close $5 million in sales, right? In real estate. This is my side business. And I started, when I put it out there on social media, I made this big chart and I started coloring it. People got invested in it. They was like, oh, she had one. I got a cousin that want to buy a house. I'm about to send them your way. You know, they start being invested in the story and the journey. So as an entrepreneur, you want to be perfect. You want to do that, but your audience doesn't want you to do that. They want to feel human. And that's one of the things we have an advantage over with big corporations, because they don't get to be human.
You absolutely right. And you know what? It's kind of the premise of my nonprofit, Guardian Angels, a mentoring mission. So it's Guardian Angels AMM, because how many Guardian Angels do you have? Like 75,000, right? But what I'm trying to do is create a safe space for young girls, right? Because initially I was targeting the young working woman, right? But there's so much you have to unlearn by the time you make it to working, right? Things that we've been conditioned that we have to unpack, unlearn by the time we make it into the rooms that we are destined to be in. So we want to launch a summer camp where it's just going to start as a day camp, because we don't have the facilities to do an overnight thing, but a day camp where we're able to invite folks, just like you all are doing the interviewing of boss women in their own right, how it's defined, to come and pour into these girls early, because what is too young to learn that you are of value? What is too young to learn good money management practices? What is too young to learn these things that, you may or may not be equipped with, just depending on, where your parents equipped with that. But if we had a collective space for these girls to come in on summers and we'd be able to follow their trajectory throughout life and give them things that you just didn't know about, didn't have. I didn't learn about credit until I didn't have good credit.
Exactly.
So why are we not talking about that stuff sooner? Why are we not talking about, your Black is beautiful, and really illustrating what that means to walk that walk within, outside of your household more often or earlier, So those are the type of things and activities we would like to pour into these girls early, so that they're walking through those different hurdles that we know we all face, through high school awkwardness, to middle school awkwardness, and keeping that sense of self, and not losing that self-esteem, because we're losing these kids to, suicides and things like that because it's societal norms.
Way higher than what it was when we were in the suicide.
I think it's social media.
It is
It's
part,
social
yeah,
the
it's
accessibility.
Yeah,
You know, they see all
it's
these
too
people,
much.
And they want it and they want it now.
They
and
want it now. Instant gratification. They forget that like everything is run by law. Law is you plant a seed, you nurture it, it grows, it comes. They want to plant a seed and have a harvest the same day.
Yeah.
Because that's what they think people are doing.
And not everybody has access to people to lead them the right way. And sometimes parents want to lead them the right way, but they don't have the tools
They
that
never
they need.
had it. Yeah.
So it's an organization, Guardian Angels, that exists now that I was a part of when I grew up that they married the parent with the child's needs, so they were support not just for the child but for the parents
too.
you know, in that. So I would like to look at myself as an extension of what that offers, right? Like later on in life, okay, they've already gotten their, you know, adolescence piece and they're starting to transition into these, you know, young adults of who they're going to be. That happens very early on.
It's very quick now.
Yeah, like
I have a niece now. I'm like, oh, I think we got to jump in here before. I thought we had 14. Well, I think we got to get in there 9, 10, you know?
As soon as they can get on social media.
Yeah. Like, I'm like, I need to understand what's happening at school. It's just so much, it's so many things. Yeah.
And with women
even
being so
being intentional,
over-sexualized.
right? Yeah. It's still a lot. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're in this space now. If someone's here listening, because as I said, project manager is a big thing. What are 2 or 3 things you would give them so that they can pivot into your space if that's something that they desire?
I would say don't be afraid to try something new. Sometimes a pivot is necessary. I watched another one of you all's podcast where a young lady was talking about how sometimes you're just as close to the finish line and you know you might tap out too soon. I 100% agree with her. And I'd like to add to that sometimes it is just time to pivot. Sometimes you have stayed your stay. You have gotten your lessons. You have gotten everything that you needed from that specific scenario or situation. And it's time to pivot, you know, and what does that look like? But being okay with the fact that you know it's going to be a safe landing. Like things don't happen like to us, they happen for us.
Yeah.
So, you know, with that quick pivot, what does that look like? Being able to be agile and adaptable, you know.
Those are all those project management terms. What is agile? I was like, uncertainty, that's my whole life.
Exactly. but being able to move, you know, effectively through that because we have no control over things that are going on with us. So if you're intentional about remaining curious and being adaptable to the things that come as they come and not allowing it to make you react in a certain way to knock you off your square, that centering is what's going to keep you authentic to self and keep you in alignment to what you've defined as your happy or your success.
Yes. So that's 2. One more.
Ooh, she counted me down.
I was like 1, 2. Okay.
It's actually an extension of that. I would say figure out and stick to who your authentic self is.
Okay.
Because that is the exact reason the company hired you.
Right.
So that whatever that sauce is and that differentiator, be able to evolve without losing what that looks like. Because you can adapt and be agile and all this thing. You look up and you're like, who am I?
Who am I?
And not in a good way.
Right.
But, you know, yes, I do want to evolve and, you know, become this beautiful human being, but is it still Angel? And holding tight to that and not being afraid of whatever that looks like within each environment, you know, I think is super critical and important. And what I would say aided in my success, relatability.
Awesome. There's one more thing I want to say before we close out. You said the boot camp, because there are going to be women watching this that are ready to go into project management, and that boot camp you said 2 weeks. 2 weeks, y'all. 2 weeks. Y'all going to be able to pass 100%. You know, Angel, I think I'm about to go back. You know, I think I'm about to go.
You know what? I'll even add in a 4th one. So upskilling yourself, like acquire those certifications. Those type of things. But Tamara McLemore, she is phenomenal. The boot camp is very comprehensive, very comprehensive, digestible content. She teaches you how to take the test. Right, and the test taking is what really trips people up, right? So don't be afraid of that. Lean into that.
we want our Black Boss ladies to start getting those project management dollars.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
and more certifications.
More
Absolutely.
certifications, all that stuff.
Yes.
So, Angel Ware, one, thank you for coming by. And you are truly a Black Boss lady.
Thank
Your
you.
legacy will live on the BBL platform.
Absolutely. I appreciate you having me.
All right, thank you.
Thank you for joining us on the BBL Platform Podcast, the place where legacies live. We hope you will join us on our next inspirational journey to success. Be sure to rate, like, and subscribe to our show. For more information, please visit our website at theBBLplatform.com.